As I've been saying over the course of some recent videos I've made on behalf of the Lord of the Rings franchise, the video gaming extension of this universe, beyond just, the cinematic adaptations and other forms that Lord of the Rings has taken in the entertainment space in regard to adapting the books into different forms and those types of stories, or maybe your more original stories following in the vein of what Tolkien wrote. The video gaming space is pretty big ground for Lord of the Rings to expand its vision. And it seems that this game, was one such title to not only be around for a little while. In fact, I'm covering this a bit late, admittedly. I'm in a catch-up phase. For those of you who are not follow this channel, I'm behind on a lot. But this game is also, it seemed to feature, some point of reverence with, I would imagine, Lord of the Rings fans, or just their general players. This is called Lord of the Rings, or The Lord of the Rings, Rise to War. It follows basically in pursuit of the films, from my understanding, that, the general storyline of the books and the Peter Jackson films. But for those of you who maybe want a deeper perspective, this is what IMDb has to say about it. Based on the iconic trilogy of books by Tolkien, and is set in the Third Age of Middle-earth. That's the time period of the novels, from Sauron's first defeat by the Last Alliance all the way until Gandalf, Galadriel, Elrond, Bilbo, and Frodo left for the Undying Lands. So again, it covers the capacity of the films. Basically, it reminds me of Lego Lord of the Rings. One of my favorite Lord of the Rings video games, as well as my favorite Lego game overall. I'm a big Lego game fan, especially of the cinematic licensed properties. And in fact, as I've also been stating previously, when it comes to Lord of the Rings, I have a very unique journey in how I approach this franchise, in that it departs, I'm sure, significantly and in quantity from many other Lord of the Rings fans, in that you all started with the books and then went to the movies and then went to the video games. I had the reverse, in that I started with literally Lego Lord of the Rings, and that's what endeared me to the rest of the franchise. And from there, I expanded to the films, and at some point I'll expand to the books. I still have not read them, admittedly. I have so many books to read. I have so many properties to follow. It's a scheduling thing. And book reading takes time. I mean, I do tend to veer more in the territory of audiobooks, and I do tend to speed up my reading, so I go a little faster. But I don't know. It's endless projects I gotta catch up with. Lord of the Rings I will at some point, but I do have tremendous reverence for the franchise, not only because, again, the time I spent in the video gaming world, because, again, I love the Lego Lord of the Rings games, and the Middle-earth ones. I love those ones, too. But the films are, classics. They're very reverent, I would say, in sci-fi, or not as much sci-fi, but, fantasy epics. And most people, I think, are endeared by the movies. They're just beautiful cinematic pieces, award-winning, even. And the games themselves, again, some I've covered a lot in fact, today, from different gaming ventures, just to get a better perspective of what's out there in the way of Lord of the Rings entertainment. And I've seen some projects of promise, others maybe not so much. Let's see how Rise to War fares. I mean, it's sitting right now at 8 reviews. It's not that much, but 8.2 out of 10 on IMDb. So at least 8 people seem to really like the game. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and pull up the trailer, or at least that's most the statistics there, I would imagine, like the game. For this video, in fact, I've gotten a pretty good roster of trailers so that we can get the best perspective possible for the game. And there's, I think, 3 trailers we're watching for this. Yes, we're going to start with a teaser, though. Without further ado, here we go. Let's get an early introduction in terms of the presentation. I like a game that's analogous to the movies. I'm just curious to see how this fares and what it looks like. Fitting image. The destruction of the ring. That's definitely a teaser. Okay, I'm just gonna cue up the trailer immediately. Because it's like, okay, the ring's pretty. Let's see what else this looks like. Not the best window into the game overall based on that ad, but it's like a very early teaser. All right, I'm gonna go and cue this up. Here we go. Trailer number 1. Hopefully this gets a better look. It's at least a minute long, so it's slightly longer in duration. Designed after the movies. That's a pretty image. And the environments all look similar to the films. The uniforms. The different creatures of Middle-earth. I wonder if you get to play, like, in those events. I would imagine you do. Very much like Lord of the Rings. Oh, that's cute. They got Sauron's eye in there. That's adorable. I wonder if this will follow, again, like, a different form of the storyline from and the gameplay from Lord of the Rings, of the Lego version, in that, again, you're just replaying the story of the films. I could see that, again, being a point of appeal. Again, I think that's... I don't know. That game is just such a faithful adaptation of the movies. And I say that again, having played the game first. It's just beautiful to play. It's my favorite games overall. I liked walking through, again, the Lord of the Rings story. It's fun to watch the films and the extended versions. I've seen those. But it's fun to play through the story yourself and feel like you're actually in the world of Middle-earth and you're leading the conquest, to defeat Sauron and save Middle-earth and all that. It's a fun way to engage with the material. All right, that was the trailer number 1. Trailer number 2 is the longest. That was a much better introduction though than the teaser. All right, the first teaser, I was like, oh, what a pretty ring. That's not enough to go on. We've seen the ring before. Like, how many other adaptations of Lord of the Rings? I need more information, especially in the gaming world.
The War of the Ring.
The whole ring is significant to the entire thing.
Reignited.
Like, I need to see a broader perspective.
Armies were raised. Beacons were lit.
This is basically a longer form. Yeah, it definitely is following all the characters. That's definitely Eowyn, Aragorn, the Nazgul. It really seems like a Lord of the Rings movie playthrough.
All factions were ready.
And I think you're more so playing through the war setting.
To claim the One Ring. Yet the journey never ends.
Of course it doesn't. The studio owners want to make as much money as possible, so they rent out. There's all these companies, producing different content for them.
And the road goes ever on. More legends are joining. More stories will be told.
Was it Aragorn or Talion a moment
And
ago?
everyone can change the course of the future.
And from what I saw of this game, it's still getting expansions for like new season updates and new content. So it still is a thriving game, even if it came out back in 2020. It's still going on. It's not just one release. Is that more stories were told? Obviously, again implying the updates. Is that Aragorn? I think it might be Aragorn based on the armor, even though the appearance almost looks a lot like Talion from the Middle-earth games. That'd be cool to weave in the Middle-earth characters. I mean, again, I know some people are like, well, it's not technically canon. It kind of flows in that vein if you want to interpret it that way. I say this with the utmost respect, by the way, to Tolkien purists, which I refrain from calling myself that, not in spirit. I've largely said this in context to the Amazon show, which like many people, seem to have a lot of complaints, even if, again, I haven't read the Tolkien books, because I kind of see what they're doing. I only say that I don't want to assume the title of a Tolkien purist, in that would imply, not that I disagree in any way with anybody who affirms that with that label in spirit, but that for me to assume that identity would be for me to imply that I have an extensive knowledge of the Lord of the Rings, which I don't, based on not having read the books. any of them, whether it be The Hobbit. Well, I did read The Hobbit back in like middle school, but I haven't read the Silmarillion. I haven't read the Lord of the Rings books. There's just so much, or any of the appendices. There's just so much stuff I would have to read that in order to even scratch the surface of being called a Tolkien purist. So I say in spirit, I agree, but maybe in a presentation, I can't fully assume that a title. With the Middle-earth games, I still stand with those. I understood the complaints that those were technically, like, they did make some canon revisions as I understood to the books, but they were still very much, for me anyway, experiencing them like Tolkien in spirit. That's what came across to me, even with some of the originality of the game's story and the character revisions, but there was still that feeling that the developers respected the world that Tolkien created. Right? It wasn't like unnecessary changes for any exterior sentiment other than to make an enjoyable Lord of the Rings top tier game or AAA game title. So I don't know how fans would kind of feel about that. Like, for experience like this, it's kind of adapting the Lord of the Rings stories from the films and largely the books. Would you want them to bring in non-canon additions, or at least as they're considered, to the universe of this game? If Talion's not already here, I mean, I don't know. But he's, again, a popular character in the video gaming world of Lord of the Rings, so I could easily see them trying to bring him in as a DLC update. But the presentation, again, it seems to be banking more on the war side of Lord of the Rings, so anything action-heavy, right? Less about, like, the character moments of traveling around with the hobbits and stuff like that, but more so, like, the war factions fighting against the orcs and Sauron's armies. And that seems to be also what's implied by the gameplay. I mean, that could be fun. Again, I think reliving the story of Lord of the Rings in game form is a lot of fun. And I would be open to it again, as much as, I love the Lego Lord of the Rings game. I'd love to try that in a new form with Rise to War. What are your guys' thoughts with this game? If this is a first introduction for you, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, as well as if you are, because I'm covering this late, if you're a player of Lord of the Rings, Rise to War, would you, or if you've been, would you recommend this game for someone like me, who's never played it before? This is very much a first look. Let me know what your thoughts are down below. And where would you say this fits in the realm of Tolkien gaming, and Lord of the Rings gaming for you, in comparison to the other franchise? Because as I've said, the video game side of Lord of the Rings is just so extensive at this point. I would love to hear how you feel down below. But for now, I think it looks, it has a lot of promise. I'm going to do another video on this with a couple other trailers that came out. But on a first look perspective based on the trailers, looks good. I like the promise, again, of being involved in the Lord of the Rings world that's established in the films, and being able to play through that rather than just watching it. It's a new form of a way to enjoy the story, and I am endeared to that quite a bit. Thank you so much for watching this video. Before you bounce, feel free to drop a like and comment, subscribe to this channel with a ding on the bell, and share this video with your friends. And consider checking out the description here. There you'll find links to my other channels, as well as addresses to my other social media accounts and ways you can help support my work if you feel so inclined. May God bless you, and looking forward to when our paths cross again.